Climate change is included in the agenda of the World Economic Forum. The threat is very real, as already experienced by the Philippines. Rehabilitation of areas devastated by Mother Nature is ongoing, with the World Bank citing the massive work being done by the government. Freddie Abando reports.
The threat of climate change is real. Its impact is spreading all over the world. It's one of the major issues raised in the World Economic Forum on East Asia. The Philippines is among the most vulnerable countries as recorded by the devastating blow unleashed by Super Typhoon Yolanda in the Visayan region. The government launched a massive recovery response to ease the agony and anguish of the survivors. It was followed by the implementation of RAY, the recovery assistance of Yolanda, planned to build back better with the support of its development partners led by the World Bank.
The challenges are the same in every country. How do you get central government, local government and communities all lined up and have a flow of funding and a flow of technical assistance that moves all the way up and down? How can you speed up and scale up the response? So housing is a huge issue for the people in Tacloban and the areas around that. So how do you build back to resilient standards, but do that in a quick way? And one of the things that we've learned from Indonesia and elsewhere is that actually making the materials and the funding available to the community, and then having the community build their own houses, just providing support and technical assistance on the grade to which those houses must be built and where they need to be built, can save money and get things moving in a much more quicker way.
The World Bank's envoy on climate change, Rachel Cites, is on the right track of implementing its reconstruction and rehabilitation efforts. The World Bank committed $1 billion. It covers 170 local government units. It's a massive program to include infrastructure, housing, public buildings, to include schools, health facilities, and government buildings. Kite cited the government's response as the emerging model that may be adopted for other countries to follow. Kite proposed the need to create a national resiliency fund which will enable government to come up with a response that will limit the impact of a natural calamity, since the destruction will affect the country's economy and the expensive cost of reconstruction. DENR Secretary Ramon Paez said the President is expected to announce the adoption of a national climate mitigation and resiliency fund similar to what was proposed by the World Bank.
What we're now doing is discussing with the government how to build a national financial resilience for the Philippines. Development will be expensive, building back better and building resilience into the infrastructure so that when the next storm hits, it doesn't have such an extreme impact. That's going to cost more. Local governments have to be financially resilient so that they can invest in their agriculture system so that they're not quite so vulnerable. And then households have to be resilient. People need to be able to have the means to be able to bounce back quicker. All of that's going to cost money, but I think the international community is ready to help. And so is the private sector, and so that's the conversation that's going on here, is how can we respond to a call from the Philippine government to really help the Philippines build its entire resilience.
It is more beneficial if you invest on resiliency. Based on the information of the World Bank, as of now, 90% of the fund with respect to disaster is being invested on response. And that is not, and only around 4% is being invested on preparedness. What they are encouraging us to do right now is to look on resilience. Invest on resiliency because in the long run it is more favorable. They are pushing for a climate change adaptation and disaster resilience fund. And this is good for us because, as they said, we are not an emitter. We did not create this disaster, but somehow Philippines is the wrong place, is in the wrong place at the wrong time. So we are not considered emitter. We did not create this disaster, but we are affected tremendously by the effect of these disasters. And it is for us to mitigate the impact and somehow invest on resiliency.
Public Works Secretary Rogelio Singson proposed the creation of a disaster resource response protocol led by the government with the support of the private sector and humanitarian groups, which will plan and prepare resilience programs to deal with any emergency that may arise from the impact of a natural disaster.
Every time there's a disaster event, we start putting together the same people and trying to identify again what will be the role of private, what will be the role of the NGOs, World Bank, donor community, and the public. This happens every time there's an event. So the decision, and I think the experience of the three countries that put this together, Indonesia, India, and one more country, is that at least it is already organized. It is in place, ready to respond. The private sector in the Philippines, particularly the Philippine Contractors Association, took on the challenge.
For the People's Television Network, this is Freddie Abando reporting.